In this lesson, we try to convert fraction into a decimal number. Okay, we take the simplest of the fractions. Let's say half. How to convert this into fraction? We know half is also equal to 1 times 5 divided by 2 times 5, and this is same as 5 by 10. Okay, why have I done 1 by 2? Why have we tried to view 1 by 2, the fraction 1 by 2, as the fraction 5 by 10? Because in fraction 1 by 2, the bottom 2, the denominator 2, means the whole unit is divided into 2 equal parts. But in decimal system, the whole unit is always divided into 10 smaller parts. That's why we look for the given fraction and see if it can be converted equivalently into another fraction where the denominator is 10. So 1 by 2, if we can multiply 2 with 5, then we know 2 times 5 is 10. The denominator becomes 10. So when we multiply the denominator with 5, remember in fractions we learned the numerator 1 also needs to be multiplied with 5. So this fraction is now viewed as 5 by 10. So instead of dividing the whole into 2 equal parts and take one of them as half, we might as well divide the whole into 10 equal parts, and if we take 5 of the 10 equal parts, we write it as 5 by 10, and we know it is exactly equal to 1 by 2. Now, before understanding how to represent 5 by 10 in decimals, let me define what a decimal notation is by taking 1 by 10 as an example. Okay, remember, in decimal system, we divide the whole unit into 10 equal parts. We divide the one whole into 10 equal parts, so we write the 10 equal parts that make up the whole unit in the denominator, and in the numerator, we just pick up one of the tiny equal parts, and that is 1. Now, we all agree in the first place. Don't ask me why. This is named, or it is called as, or it is defined as. We all agree to represent this as, write it as 0.1. That's it. Sometimes we also write it as 0.1. What does it mean? To the right of this point, we write the tiny little part we have taken. We have taken one tiny little part out of 10 such equal parts that make up the whole unit. So 0.1. So this is to emphasize that in 0.1 there are no whole units at all. It is just, after all, 1 out of the 10 tiny parts. So it has no whole units. That's why to the left of this decimal point, we put 0, saying that there is nothing. There is no whole unit. And there is only 1 out of the 10 whole units. So 0.1 exactly means what we understand 1 by 10. Okay. With this done, to go further, there are two ways. One is start with a number line. So let me draw a number line. like this. Okay, let me mark this point here, okay, as 0. Then let me mark 1 somewhere here, okay. So this is number 1. What I mean is this point here is number 1, and an equal distance further to the right is another point, and that again I put a marker there and write number 2. So our interest is to find out how to represent half, which is a fraction less than 1. So we are concerned with points between 0 and 1. We know what half means. From here to here, we divide exactly into 2 parts, and let's say I mark this as this point. This is exactly half, so I put a tinier one. See, here I have a big marker, another big marker, and a tinier marker that represents half. So let me write half right over the top. So this marker is half. Now remember, in decimal system, this from this point to this point, it is one whole unit, and in decimal systems, we need to divide these into 10 equal parts. So the first half we divided into 5 equal parts, the second into another 5 equal parts, like this. Okay, this is somewhere half. So let me put a point here. So, and then divide this into 2 equal parts, and put another point here and divide this into 2 equal parts. Now count how many equal parts are there. From this 0 to this point, it is one part, one tiny part, the second tiny part, the third tiny part, the fourth, and the fifth. So there are 5 tiny parts. Likewise, we'll divide this also into 5 tiny parts. So this is somewhere exactly half. To slightly to the left, I put a marker, divide this into 2. Slightly to the right, I put another marker, divide this into 2. So now I have first part. From here, the first part, the second part ends here, the third part ends here, the fourth part ends here, and this is the fifth part. So there are 5 equal parts here, 5 equal parts here. All the parts are exactly same. So right in the middle you have 1 by 2. But in terms of tiny parts, the little parts, the same fraction is represented as, you see, we have taken 5 parts out of total 10 parts. So this same point can also be written as, in fractions, 5 by 10. Okay, so this is what we mean. We already know this result. 1 by 2 is same as 5 by 10. So on the number line, we just realize the same thing. This center point is exactly half, or 1/2, and this center point can also be written as fractions 5 by 10. Now, do you recall how many of 1 by 10s make up 5 by 10? Of course we do. Let me write it here. Okay, so we recall that 1 by 10 is 0.1. So 5 by 10 has exactly 5 little parts. Okay, I don't know how to get rid of this. Okay, so 5 by 10 has exactly 5 of these 1 by 10s. The first 1 by 10, the second 1 by 10, the third 1 by 10, the fourth 1 by 10, the fifth 1 by 10. So I take 5 1 by 10s. So that is first 1 by 10, the first little part, then the second little part, another 1 by 10, plus the third little part, another 1 by 10, the fourth little part, this 1 by 10, and the fifth little part, another 1 by 10. Now, each of these 1 by 10s, okay, we have agreed to write as, see, all these 5 put together, this is exactly 0.1 plus the second 1 by 10 is again 0.1 plus the third 1 by 10 is again 0.1. This fourth 1 by 10 is again 0.1 and the fifth 1 by 10 is another 0.1. So all these five 5.1s when added together, it's just like adding all the fives. Sorry, it's just like adding all the 5 tiny parts, and we know that we are writing tiny parts out of the 10 tiny parts. So we have taken 5 tiny parts out of the possible 10 tiny parts. So we write it as 0.5. We also know that it has no whole parts, so it has 0 whole parts, plus it has 5 tiny little parts. So to indicate that these are all the tiny little 10 parts that make up the 1, we put, so this just indicates that this decimal point, or point we call, it indicates that we have 5 tiny little parts, where 10 such parts would have made one whole unit. So if we only have 5 of those 10 tiny little parts, we have no wholes, that is 0 whole parts plus 0.5. So this can also be written as 0.5. So you see the fraction half is same as the fraction 5 by 10. So the moment you see this 5 by 10, we can immediately recognize that these are 5 tiny little parts, while 10 of those little parts make a whole. So we put, there are no whole parts, so we put a 0 for the whole number, and then put a decimal to indicate that whatever follows, which is 5 here, this 5 actually represents 5 of these 1/10ths. Thank you.